If you are considering growing anything this spring, this is probably one of my favorite things to grow. This is a Rose of Sharon seed pod. And the Rose of Sharon is just such an incredible plant. I'll share with you an example of it right here. It looks like a hibiscus plant in many respects, but it grows as a tree and it blooms for so much of the summer. So, we're located up in Canada and this thing is just amazing. Many times you'll see just vibrant pink, white, even purple kind of hues in it. It's just really, really incredible. But as much as I love this plant, and I would encourage you if you're thinking about, planting something to absolutely consider this. But I want to connect it back to growing stuff in the digital space as well, because I think the parallels are very, very similar. First, this actual seed pod came from my aunt, my late aunt, incredible woman. She had planted, her and her husband, my uncle had planted a Rose of Sharon tree, and they had it in their yard, and it was big and beautiful. And my parents, decades ago, had taken some of the seeds, or sometimes over the season, they'll pop up these little shoots of small, tiny little versions of the trees. And they planted some a few hours later where a few hours away where we live. And so we grew up and there was Rose of Sharon trees that were growing up in the backyard. And they're very, very fertile. They just seem to, the seed pods themselves, for every flower they open up and they have multiple seeds within it. And they're these fun little furry seeds. Very, very fertile. And so actually my mom had suggested, she's like, hey, I see some of these, shooting up. Why don't you take a couple of these little trees and come plant them? And so I did. And in fact, I had a couple extras. So gave a couple to the neighbors and some friends. And this would have been about 2 years ago, since their trees are doing well, our trees in the backyard are doing well. And this year, we'll see some blossoms and whatnot. But I've been thinking about, a lot of the work that we're doing right now in the digital space. Really, there are real parallels between what goes on in the physical space and what goes on in the digital. And one of them specifically when it comes to where we are focused, which is helping brands to show up in AI search, right? So that when someone goes to Chat or Claude or Perplexity or Google or whatever, and they start asking, hey, who's the best for this? Or what are some great options for that your brand shows up. And the reason why I mention it is that if you want to be able to have stuff that you are doing to be surfacing a year from now, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years from now, you need to have a real reason for it. Like forget all the noise, forget all the noise that's happening about, hacks and ways to sort of like use weird tactics or like shortcuts or black hat practices to be able to show up, either in AI search or like SEO would have black hat options. Forget the kind of scammy stuff. This time next year, there will be far more people in your space that are realizing the importance of being one of the brands that show up. The lineup is going to get longer, and everyone's going to want to be in the top. So who gets to be in the top, right? The ones that deserve it, the ones that have substance, have value that fits with the criteria of what people are searching for, more and more, this is who should be recommended. And so if you do solve a important problem, like a meaningful problem in the world, and you're good at it, you have testimonials, you have proof, you have product market fit, there is no reason that you should not be surfacing in your market. And the reason why I bring up seeds is that right now, there is a compounding effect of starting or not starting, of starting and persisting to continue, or those that are just waiting and thinking that once they see more boats on the horizon, more competitors, when it moves from blue ocean to red ocean, then they'll figure like, okay, now it's time to sort of like saddle up and get out there and start contending. By that point, it will become far more expensive to get far less impact than if you start now. And that's why the idea of seeds, I think, is so important. Because right now, the amount of time that it costs to be able to put a seed in the ground and let that kind of sprout and become like a little sapling is the same amount of time and arguably same amount of resources, similar if you have soil and you have sun and you have water, as if you plant 2 versus if you plant 20. So right now is a really valuable time for you to be picturing the sort of like digital space, the landscape of what you want your brand to be doing, and take that territory and find ways to take the seeds of the content, the messaging, the value that you have, and start planting them like immediately. Here's the angle of it that I've not heard a lot of people talk about, is producing content specifically for the machine layer. Now, that's not to say that you completely stop producing content for the human layer. I think that there's good reason to still contend for content to be surfacing in people's feeds, or to pay attention to trends and have your team working on stuff that will surface in trends and sort of interrupt people as it's suggested in feeds. That's a great way to be able to show up where there's like human eyeballs kind of inadvertently coming across things that maybe they're interested in and whatnot. But when it comes time to solve an important problem, when someone is actually pulling out their device and they're explaining what the problem is and they're looking for a solution, that is a different point of intersection. And to be able to intersect at that point, it takes more work up front to be able to index in a way that these AI systems look and have a greater level of confidence to believe that you actually are the right option to be suggesting, or one of the right options to be suggesting. So to me, if you think of, for every one seed that you produce, and this might be a little bit more technical in a respect, but I think it's pretty simple. Let's say that there's one specific topic that you decide that, hey, this is key to what we do, so we're going to talk about this. You produce a piece of meaningful content out of that, and you plant that. Once that has a spot to live in the digital space, you have the potential for that to grow. Meaning, if it's connected properly in the ecosystem of how your brand is set up, then as other AI systems are able to go and index and see that, it is going to essentially be reinforcing that message, that content, that value with your brand to a point where it will impact what's cited and what is referenced for people that are searching for other content. So in a way, it'll begin to grow. But within that, over the course of a period of time, if you're using certain tools that help you see what others are searching for, you can actually look and see and get more clues as to what will come out of that. So you may find, depending on the kind of content you're creating, that you get more clues within that category of other things that you can be then taking and producing and planting to be able to grow. One of the ways we do this is actually using tools to be able to search and see exactly what people are searching on ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity, or in Google with Gemini, or Google AI's summary, is we look and see exactly in certain topics what word for word were people searching for, and did your brand show up or not, or were competitors showing up for it? Once you have that, that in and of itself has the DNA of possibility. You can take that key that has shown up from something in the real world where something has grown up, someone has been looking for something. You can take a key out of that and look and realize, wow, someone is asking about this specific thing. We are going to produce a specific piece of content for that. That could be depending on what it is, it could be an article, it could be a blog post, it could be a social media post that gets repurposed. It could be, if it's a deeper topic, it could be a podcast where you break it down. It could be an audio version of that podcast or a video. It could be a conversation with someone who maybe is a relevant authority in that space that you invite on to be able to then create that content, pull that transcript, rework an article from it, turn a social media content piece into it, and make sure all of it is connecting back to the digital root structure of your actual, where your brand would call home. All of that, I think, is a healthy way to be finding keys and making sure immediately, as you're seeing that potential of reasons to be producing content that relate to what people are actually searching, to actually take those things and actually plant them now and not wait. Because for every season, if you think of from one seed, you go to a point of having multiple pods, that then for the next season, once you have those multiple pods, if you're planting an array of those and you repeat that process, you have the potential to have compounding interest play to your benefit, as opposed to the opposite. So my suggestion for you, first of all, if you're gardening or you're planting, like right now it's May in Canada, and so this is perfect time to be planting things. But I would suggest absolutely planting a Rose of Sharon tree or trees, or if you know someone who has one, to get seed pods from it and consider starting it from scratch. And if you do that, to consider as season by season more seeds are coming up, to like intentionally go take those seeds, go to parts of your property and sow those seeds where you want more of those trees coming up, because they are absolutely gorgeous. And if you're producing content and looking to grow something digitally online, I would absolutely find the kind of content that is of the substance that you like and you want to be known for, and get the essence of it. Use the tools, use the due diligence to be able to find out what those pieces are, then reverse engineer it. Plant those seeds in the garden or in the territory of where your brand is, so that they will grow up and be able to produce more seeds, and you can continue to do that. I think over time, I would look at it like this, the simplest way. If you want to be a brand that's showing up in AI search a year from now, 2 years from now, no matter how the models move or how things move, be deserving of it. Create the content, build your infrastructure at the digital level, at the machine level, so that as the machines are looking, they see that you are an authority in the space, helping to solve meaningful problems for customers that are looking for a solution that you offer.